So thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you being part of our webinar series. I'm going to introduce our panelists. So with myself, today I have Dr. James Tansey. He's an entomologist with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture. He has served as the Provincial Insect Pest Management Specialist with Saskatchewan's Ministry of Agriculture since January of 2018. In this role, he focuses on extension working closely with growers, agronomists, and industry to help Saskatchewan farmers identify, monitor, and manage insect and vertebrate pests in field crops. Dr. Tansey is passionate about translating research and field observations into practical, actionable insights that help producers protect yield and make informed pest management decisions. His work provides timely guidance on emerging pest pressures, seasonal trends, and integrated pest management strategies across the province. Understanding insect pressure is critical for protecting yield and making timely management decisions. In this webinar, Dr. Tansey will provide an outlook on insect trends in field crops for the 2026 growing season, drawing on provincial monitoring, field observation, and recent research. Dr. Tansey will highlight key insects to watch for, emerging risks, and the conditions that could lead to insect pest pressure. Attendees will gain practical insights to help anticipate potential challenges and prepare for effective management strategies for the season ahead. I wanted to remind all guests that CEU credits are available and the QR code will be shown at the end of the webinar. I will introduce myself to those that aren't aware of who I am. I am Patty Soloduca. I'm the technical sales agronomist for ADAMA, and I cover the North Central, North Sask region of the province. So with the introductions underway, we will pass it off to Dr. Tansey to start with his presentation.
Thanks very much, Patty. I apologize in advance. My voice is a little tatty. I picked up a bit of a bug last week. Pardon the unintentional pun. So grasshoppers. Grasshoppers have been a perennial issue, of course, in Western Canada. Peaking most recently in about 2023. Last year, 2025, was a bit of a good news story as far as grasshoppers went. A couple of notable occurrences occurred. First and foremost is diminishing of grasshopper population and grasshopper pressures in general. And this was associated primarily with two-striped grasshopper. Two-striped grasshopper has been our most prevalent pest in Saskatchewan and across the prairies for a few years now, several years in fact, and it's greatly diminished numbers were really quite apparent in 2025. There's some speculation that this could be associated with the outbreak of disease in the species, and this is most notably associated with a fungal infection called Entomophthora grillii. This obliges its host, in this case the grasshopper, to climb to the top of the nearest plant, grab on for dear life, and then rain down fungal spores on all of its friends. So many of you may have seen these in field crops, these dead grasshoppers clinging to the tops of plants. So that's two-striped grasshopper. We do have multiple pest species in the province as well, and each of these are characterized by different host preferences, slight differences in physiological constraints and environmental effects and the interactions between physiology and environment. But for the most part, very, very similar to these, but sometimes great differences in host preferences. We'll talk about this in a little bit. Oh, sorry, if you could stay on that slide, please. So I did mention two-stripe. These girls are big. So females are larger than males. Usually, the females can be 1.5 to 1.6 inches. Really characteristic stripes from right between the eyes to the tip of the forewings. Can be a number of different color morphs. These ones tend to like forbs, so they like broadleaf plants. They will munch on cereals though, if given given no choice, and can be damaging in cereals. The next two working up, Packards and migratory, are both considered to be ambivorous. So that is, if it's green, it's pretty much on the table, with the exception in the case of migratory, especially of the Chenopodiaceae. So that is kochia. They won't touch kochia. Turnbull's grasshopper is another native species. It will happily munch on kochia, but migratory won't touch it, despite the fact that it'll actually strip the paint off of outbuildings under starvation conditions. It still won't touch kochia. And finally, clearwing, which is a grass specialist. Clearwing and migratory are much smaller than the other two. Typically, females are going to be about an inch long, as opposed to the 1.5 to 1.6 inches for Packards and two stripes. Overall population is much reduced. We did see some regional issues. We saw some seedlings being attacked in the northeast, in the Tisdale region, and in the west central. I did indicate, the ongoing curiosity with two-stripe grasshopper, and we of course continue to monitor that situation. We did see in the Southwest some pretty numerous Packards, but they can be very difficult to distinguish from a congenitor called Melanopus foetus. Impossible to distinguish until you actually get them to adulthood and tease out the male naughty bits. So I guess quick show of hands who thought they would hear about male naughty bits today. Probably not many. Anyway, it takes microscopic examination to be able to determine the difference. Marsh meadow grasshopper was prevalent in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And this is why species differentiation is really important, because despite the fact that this was the most numerous grasshopper on many sites, and by some accounts, the most numerous grasshopper across the prairies, it's not a pest. So it doesn't represent a threat to rangeland. It doesn't represent a threat to field crops, but it can be numerous. And so application of sprays for marsh meadow grasshopper is functionally pointless. Next slide, please. So SEIC, we rely on entirely for our grasshopper survey. And typically they'll do between 1,100 and 1,200 sites throughout Saskatchewan. So this is a very large survey with a lot of moving parts. They conducted 1,149 site evaluations throughout the province from July to September. So that is when grasshoppers were reaching adulthood. This is the best time to evaluate them. Very low numbers of damaging, or very low incidence of damaging populations. And these were only detected above the nominal threshold of 10 per square meter on about 8 sites. And we can take a look at the next slide, please. So 2024 versus 2025, you can see a real contraction in the geographic range and the numbers of damaging populations. Next slide, please. So the next one is an obligate cereal pest. I did mention before, a lot of the grasshopper species have very broad host ranges. A couple of them are actually considered to be ambivores, or will eat most things. This one is a strict cereal pest. This is wheat midge, and so pictured here is the adult, this little orange fly. Looks very much like a mosquito, and it's a member of the Nematosera. So that is the lower flies. So you can see, there's some pretty stark differences between the lower flies and the higher flies. One that this one often gets mistaken for is what are flies in the family Loxanidae. This is a higher fly. So if you get a quick look at it and it looks like a house fly, that's a higher fly. If you take a quick look at it, looks like a mosquito, that's considered a lower fly. So real quick and dirty way to tell the difference between wheat midge and a loxanid, despite the fact that they're both orange and can co-occur. Loxanids are not damaging to crops. Their larvae are thought to be predators and detritus feeders in the soil. So in the case of wheat midge, they require a soaking rate before the end of May. So more than 25 millimeters. Otherwise, they'll just hunker down in the soil in a state of delayed diapause. And so they're hunkered down as third instar larvae inside that second instar larval exuvium, and they're waiting for those soaking rains to stimulate pupation, and they can hunker down for years. So they're just waiting for those, ideal conditions. Adults don't live very long, so it's really, really essential for them to try to synchronize that emergence. But when they do emerge, they can be pretty significant pests of wheat, as we're all aware. And finally, picture there, that's the parasitoid of the specialist parasitoid of wheat midge, and that's Macrogleanes penetrans, and it is an egg and larval parasitoid. We had no reports of spraying. Not to say that that spraying did not occur, but we did not get reports of spraying. And of course, there's only one mode of action, that is a 1B dimethoate currently registered for control of wheat midge. There are, however, a number of wheat and durum varieties available with the SM1 resistance gene or tolerance gene, pardon me, that continue to prove to be very effective for controlling wheat midge damage in cereals. It's a very good set it and forget it solution. Where if you don't feel like being on your hands and knees or on your knees looking across a canopy at 8:30 p.m. on Canada Day, if you feel like being at the lake, then SM1 is probably not a bad solution. So, provincial survey we conduct, which is we use a contractor funded through SCIC and Sask Wheat, and many thanks to them for funding that survey, and to the contractor for doing an excellent job of collecting soil cores. And what we're looking for is the numbers of animals that are overwintering in the soil and the levels of parasitism. So if an animal is parasitized, it's considered to be a dead end. And this is probably important to discuss the difference between a parasite and a parasitoid. So macrogleanines, like most parasitic wasps, all parasitic wasps, is a parasitoid. We've all seen the movie Alien, or the movie series Alien, the chest burster. That's a good example of a parasitoid. It kills its host. It's an obligate host killer. A parasite is an obligate try to get along with your host as best you can. It's deleterious for them to kill their host. So humans hardly ever die of head lice, and I know of no accounts of uh, head lice directly killing humans. So that there's a good example of a parasite versus a parasitoid. So this is a parasitoid. We're looking for that one. I indicate the 2025 survey samples were currently are being processed in this slide. Update, they have been processed. If we could go to the next slide. Oh, I wanted to mention too, Tyler Wist with Ag Canada also conducts the Midge Busters program, and this is a pheromone lure program, also prairie wide in this case. And what he's catching male midge as they emerge. The thinking is that we got a 1-to-1 ratio of males to females, and that we should see roughly simultaneous emergence. Although there's plenty of evidence that males do emerge first, and they'll be waiting around for those females to emerge to take advantage of them. You can see the cumulative rainfall here. And things were pretty dry in the spring, so we didn't get that soaking rain before the end of May, and that very likely limited mass emergence and limited trap catches of those ones. If we go to the next slide, please. Oh, I apologize. I meant to include the soil cores for those. Please contact me directly or take a look at the ministry website and the Prairie Pest Monitoring Network website. They're up on those ones too, and you can get an idea of what's happening with wheat midge soil cores. A little more action there than we saw with the pheromone lures. We still have some warm spots, particularly around the Regina region, and if we get soaking rains in May, we could still see some trouble with wheat midge. You can never count them out. Next slide, please. This is another one that's come into the fore in recent years. This is Hessian fly, and yeah, of course you can't discount anything with destructor as a specific epithet. This is considered to be one of the most important wheat pests worldwide. So that is wherever wheat is grown, and has been notably absent from the Canadian prairies for some time. In 2023 and 2024, 2022 as well, we were getting dribs and drabs, but we were starting to get reports of lodging and occurrence of this animal in Saskatchewan. And we were doing our best to collect these pupae or flaxseed stage. And you'll see these. Talk a little bit about the life history of these ones. This is another midge. So it's another cessid pictured lower right there. Even shorter duration than wheat midge. Totally different species though. This is Hessian fly, although it is another gall midge, much like wheat midge. So quite a bit larger than wheat midge, and of course the coloration is different as well. So we were submitting for samples of these pupae or flaxseed stage. It looks a bit like a flaxseed. And what we're trying to do was to rear those out to determine the levels of parasitism. And this picture top right is one of the parasitoids that I reared out at the crop protection lab. But we can go to the next slide. We'll get into this animal in a little more detail. Sorry, apologies. The phone never stops ringing sometimes. Description of this animal. This is a male pictured top, female pictured bottom. The male at the top has distinctive structures called claspers at the end of his abdomen. You can probably well imagine what those for. Those are for. They're for clasping. The female has an ovipositor for depositing eggs, and oftentimes a quick and dirty way to tell the males from the female just at a glance is if you got an orange hue, that's from the eggs inside of gravid females. If she's egg bearing, then she's going to have an orange hue associated with that. So 1 to 4 days of activity, and these animals are a pretty good size, for gall midges. They're small mosquito size. Next slide, please. A little bit about the life history. Um, the top photo can be a little bit misleading. That's a really heavy egg load. That is probably heavier than you would see in most field settings. But they do tend to lay their eggs on the leaf surface in groups of 2 to 15 or so, two to a dozen as a rule, 250 to 300 per female. So they are pretty fecund. They can contribute a lot to the next generation. They typically get from egg to adult in about a month. Everything is temperature dependent with insects, and is with these ones as well. They can enter what's called an estivation stage midsummer. So if conditions are very warm and very dry, they can delay their development and hunker down in this estivation stage and delay their development in a diapause state. So those eggs are going to be laid in groups of 2 to about a dozen. These are going to hatch up in about 3 to 10 days. Again, temperature dependent. 30 degrees Celsius is about the peak for their activity. After that, things tend to fizzle a little bit. You see that a lot in temperate insects. They're not extremely hot temperature tolerant. Again with the flaxseed, you can see the larvae here as well. They tend to darken with age. And so once again, these are going to hatch in 3 to 10 days, and they're going to move. They're going to move to where the leaf sheath meets the stem, and they're going to feed there. And they've got little protuberances, little sharp protuberances on their mouth parts, and I'll show that to you in the next slide. Sorry, if we could, sorry, just go back to the previous slide. They have 3 larval instars, and much like some of the other cessids, that third instar is hunkered down inside the second instar's cuticle and just waiting for the right conditions. And next slide, please. So 1 to 2 generations per year on the northern Great Plains. The range extends across North America. And so you get to regions like the Carolinas and Texas, you can get 3 to 6 generations per year. So they tend to roll over and kind of stack up on each other. Usually 2 distinct generations, primarily in the Pacific Northwest, but also documented in the Dakotas, and we're thinking that's what's occurring on the Canadian prairies as well, though we're continuing to build information on that. The Canadian prairies, through exposure to spring wheat in the Pacific Northwest and the Dakotas, so much like what we see here, those regions tend to rely more heavily and produce more heavily spring wheat than winter wheat. Their phenology has shifted to take advantage of spring wheat, whereas in southern parts of their range, they're winter wheat specialists. So the larvae overwinter in those puparia on plants in winter wheat. They can also overwinter on a number of different host plant species, including brome, uh, um, in spring wheat systems. They can also be a residue-borne pest, so that is they can emerge from residue in the spring to colonize wheat seedlings, and that can result in stunting of those wheat seedlings as well. And as I did mention, the potential for estivation, adult eclosion or adult emergence in the spring, they don't need a whole lot of warmth. So 1.6 degrees Celsius is their development threshold. And the degree day threshold that's been worked out for them is 343 degree days base 1.6 degrees, pardon me, Celsius. What does that mean? It means about mid-May. in a normal year. So, coinciding roughly with the emergence of wheat seedlings, spring wheat seedlings. So they're going to move from stubble or from alternate hosts, and they do, as I mentioned before, have a series of alternate hosts, including brome. So it's really hard to throw a rock in Saskatchewan without hitting brome. So there's a lot of opportunity for alternate hosts for this animal. And again, adults typically 1 to 4 days. Next slide, please. So I did mention the mouth part, so we'll take a quick look at that. You can see some sharp little rasping structures there. They're going to use that to scrape the plant tissues and start leakage. Essentially, they're gonna suck up those plant juices, and that's what they're using for nutrition. Um, their feeding can result in the stunting of spring plants, and because they're feeding on the group between the leaf sheath and the stem, that can cause weakening in that area, primarily on the second node. So a really good way to tell the difference between lodging associated with these is that flaxseed stage or the pupae stage, clinging to the plant, and B, breakage at the second node, and relatively clean breakage without being plugged with frass. If it's breakage at the first node and it's plugged with frass, you're looking at cereal leaf, or not cereal leaf beetle, wheat stem sawfly, pardon me, because they tend to chew away the inside of that node and plug it with frass. We'll talk about that animal a little bit more in an upcoming slide. So we can go to the next slide. So we did notice documents increases in lodging from 2022 to 2023. This continued in 2024, and we did have some incidents of lodging in 2020, 2025 as well. And 2024, of course, some significant incidents of lodging, and this extended all the way from the Battlefords down through Moose Jaw Pence and into the southeast, with heavy concentrations, in that Battlefords area and that Moose Jaw Pence area. So that line well, it's very wheat heavy there as well. So this was the first report of Hessian fly since 2014, and that was in the Tisdale region. So, as I indicated before, they're not cold limited. So that 1.6 degrees Celsius as a development threshold means they're pretty cold tolerant. Prior to that, 2010 was the first account of this animal, or the previous account of this animal, and that was in southern Alberta. So they're more frequently occurring right now than they have in recent history. Next slide, please. So because of this emergence, we got together with the Ministry of Agriculture Saskatchewan, Agriculture Manitoba, Alberta Agriculture, Agriculture Canada, and the University of Alberta, with Boyd Morey and Kristen Cooley from the University of Alberta, Amanda Jorgensen, the Alberta entomologist, John Gavlosky, the Manitoba entomologist. Pardon me, myself, Tyler was from Ag Canada, and Carter Peru from the Ministry of Ag, in addition to some other people as well, including Grace Unu, who was instrumental in coordinating some of these sampling. My summer student, Faith Hilliston, Coven Stonehouse, Massich, and oh, pardon me, this is yeah, and our SARM PhDA Mahoney. All participated in sampling for these using a recently produced commercially available pheromone lure. What's a little weird about this pheromone lure is in the case of Cecidomyiidae, or cessids for short, the gall midges, normally their pheromones are one component. So it's one ingredient, and that makes for really efficient use, really efficient production. In the case of Hessian fly, it was determined by Anderson that it's a six-component lure or a six-component mix, which is very strange for cessids. But anyway, that's what's been incorporated into the commercial pheromone lure. This is the same mix that was documented in the Dakotas. So we had some pretty good assurance that this would be relevant for populations across the prairies. We spike these Jackson traps, which are modified delta traps. So basically small delta traps with a bit of a landing lip on them, and suspended them just above the growing crop. 10 sites per province, 2 sites per trap. Next slide, please. here are some of the results of these ones. If you take a look at some of the Manitoba results in particular, there was one site with on average about 2,500 Hessian fly adults captured per site. So we got some hot spots in Manitoba. We also have some pretty warm spots in Saskatchewan and a couple in Alberta as well. The real rub, though, is that we weren't seeing a clear correlation between adult catches and occurrence of Hessian fly in these fields. So the work needs to continue, and we will continue to monitor for these ones in the upcoming year. Take a look at the next slide, please. So I did mention parasitoids in the previous one, and this is the photo of the one of the ones that we reared at the crop protection lab. So from our call out to agronomists, and that call out continues. If you do see Hessian fly puparia, please submit them to myself at the crop protection lab or to Tyler Wist at Ag Canada in Saskatoon, whatever location is closer for you. We will get these into breeding facilities and rear out the parasitoids to try to determine what sort of parasitoid load that these have and try to determine their identities. So there's 41 species in Europe and North America that can have regulating impacts on Hessian fly. In Washington State, which is a big wheat producing region, you can have up to 98% parasitism. So these can be really strong regulators of Hessian fly populations. In Idaho, at least 4 species have been described. This is a relatively older publication, so there may be more species documented now. I haven't come across these from the Idaho records though. Relatively decent diversity in Idaho. Alberta, Saskatchewan, it's Pediobius that's been documented. This animal that I've got pictured here is not Pediobius. So it is another genus entirely, and I think Panstenon, which is listed as one of the Manitoba genera. So Manitoba, some excellent work done there, up to 79% parasitism of the second generation. So that is the generation that's contributing to lodging, and a relatively good diversity of parasitoids there. So I'm just going to put it to the group. Take a wild guess if from the dozens of puparia that we receive, just take a wild guess how many parasitoids I reared in 2 years. And maybe I'll leave it to the host. I realize it's difficult to interact online in this sort of way. I'll jump to the chase. Two.
Yeah.
I got 2 out of dozens in 2 years. Yeah, so the level of parasitism is in Saskatchewan, at least from the samples that I got, very low. Tyler got 1 out of all of the ones that he got. Last year, we got 0. We need to get more puparia in and be able to evaluate what we're looking at for parasitism, because this is one of the strongest regulators of their populations. There are no products registered for their control, although there is resistant germplasm that has been developed for their control. So next slide, please. With that, I'll move on to another animal. This is the wheat stem sawfly. We completed the second year of our formal survey for wheat stem sawfly. We had been noting increases in cutting and thought it behooved us to get out there and actually see what's happening with this animal in a formal way. So once again, thank you to SCIC and to Saskweed for funding this work, and to Scott Mears, the contractor who conducts this work. We added some work, both Grace Onu and myself added another 16 sites to the 100 that Scott looked at to try to expand the range a little bit more, a little further north and a little bit further east. So we have a higher numbers of sites sampled this past year than we saw in 2024, and happy to report that the levels of cutting, although they're still prevalent in some regions, were reduced this year relative to last. And the levels of parasitism were much increased this year relative to last, and a lot of dead sawfly in stubs. What was noted is the occurrence of their entomopathogenic or insect-killing species of Fusarium. These are not the plant pathogenic Fusarium that you may have heard of. These are entomopathogens, and there are at least 5 different species that will happily consume a wheat stem sawfly inside the stem. So if you cut a stem open and you got a fuzzy pink occurrence in there, that's a good sign that Fusarium has killed a wheat stem sawfly in there. So we had pretty good occurrence of that. A lot of dead sawfly in stubs, and overall cutting was down. Also high levels of parasitism. Next slide, please. We did have some heavy cutting still, though, primarily in the Regina Moose Jaw area and Pence. But, as you can see from 2024 to 2025, numbers were down. The plan is to continue with this work for 2026. So stay tuned for the results of that. This is a late season uh, survey, though, so it won't occur during the growing season. Next slide, please. Cereal thrips, or barley thrips, pardon me, were a regional problem, particularly in the Wakan Saskatoon regions and mid to late July in those regions. If the plant gets to heading, it's pretty good. It's unlikely that the thrips are going to have a pretty significant impact on this plant, on barley in particular. So there is a well-established threshold for barley thrips in barley, and that is 7 to 8 thrips per stem before heading is complete. For wheat and durum, it's a little more contentious. A lot of this work was conducted well, almost all the work was conducted on European populations, and some of the thresholds that were developed there don't seem to be as meaningful for North American populations. So we've got a rough guide of about 14 per stem in wheat and durum, but it's not rock solid like you would see for barley. So there are really well worked out experimentally derived thresholds for barley, but these typically work out to seven to eight per stem. Next threshold, next threshold, pardon, next slide, please. 2025 was a bit of a you guys work in agronomy. I'm sure you're well aware every year is a little odd. 2025 was pretty darn odd, especially from an insect perspective. And one of the real oddities was brown wheat mite, and this was occurring in big numbers in the Kindersley area. This is normally something that would occur in Oklahoma, Texas, much drier regions with much greater degree to accumulation. Kindersley was suffering from very dry conditions in the spring. The plants were stunted because of it, and coupled with that, large populations of brown wheat mite. These flourish under dry conditions and can be very damaging. And this, coupled with with the challenging growing conditions, can have a pretty significant impact on yield. Happily, they're very sensitive to rain, and soaking rain occurred in the Kindersley region and washed all the mites off the plants and never to return. So rain is really the best solution for these ones. Next slide, please. Another real oddity, and the next couple of slides will be oddities. This is Cerodonta lateralis. It's an agromyzid, so that is a leaf mining fly. You've probably seen another agromyzid that attacks pulse crops, and most notably peas. Harmless in peas, showy but harmless, and you'll see these little tunnels, through the particularly in pea seedlings. Again, harmless, but pretty showy in peas. In the case of this one, there is a potential for economic damage. And in the case of the fields where these were sampled from, there was some indication of some pretty significant damage to the crop. Whether that turned into economic damage is still uncertain at this point. It doesn't seem it did, but it can be a pretty showy animal and can lead to economic damage. So it's one we're going to continue to look for. The last report of this one was from 2007, and that was from Alberta. And that was work that was done by Mike Linsky et al. In North America, Japan, and Europe, it is generally well controlled by parasitoids, and not a problem in the EU at all for the most part, due in large part to parasitism. Its hosts are very, very broad. So, it's soup to nuts when it comes to grasses. So it'll go from brome to corn. If it's a monocot, it'll at least give it a go, it seems. So this is a look at one of the puparia on an affected wheat stem or wheat leaf, pardon me, and a look at the adult. These are small animals. It's about 2 millimeters long. We're also looking for samples of these ones. So the agronomist who notified us of this issue and submitted puparial samples to the crop protection lab. So Sincere thanks to her for submitting those. We tried to rear parasitoids out of these and managed to get adults out of all but one. Not adult parasitoids, adult flies, out of all but one of the samples. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So parasitism was nil in these ones. So not being regulated by parasitoids, at least on these sites. So if you see them, please submit samples. I'm certain I don't have Tyler listed here, but I'm certain that either he or Megan would love to get their hands on some pupae as well. Uh, uh, Please, if you see them, send them away, and we'll get them reared out and try to get some parasitoids. Next slide, please. In keeping with the weirdo theme, this is Paratrechus convivus, or what's been colloquially called the red bug. Yeah, not very descriptive, is it? There's a lot of red bugs, but you can see why. Um, Curiously enough, the family Rhiparochromidae are actually called the dirt-colored seed bugs. Not very dirt-colored in the case of nymphs here, which is what's pictured. The winged adults, however, are very, very well camouflaged on soil, or dirt colored, if you like. So, pardon me. This is a photo from this past year of. I'm not sure what's happening with the formatting of these slides. Um, Apologize for that. The so Pertrechus scurrying madly away on the soil surface, and these were causing damage to wheat in the Kindersley region, and pretty significant damage. And so they feed on the subsurface portions of the plant, the piercing sucking feeders, and their feeding results in highly stunted growth and greatly lost turgor. And because of the numbers, they occur by the bajillions, and they can be extremely numerous. And what Tyler and I have seen when we go racing out, and every time we get it reported, these animals, usually we'll meet up at a field and try to get a little heads up as to what some of the conditions that are contributing. And so what we've seen, coupled with some 100-year-old publications. So this animal's been around for a while. It was initially described as Paratrechus saskatchewanensis. So that kind of gives you an idea how local this animal is. The name was subsequently changed to convivus for reasons that we don't need to get into. Systemicists and taxonomists are constantly busy rearranging things, and I think for good reason. But anyway, let's have detail on that. Heavily damaging wheat in the Kindersley region, and this damage can occur really quickly. So one of the things that Tyler and I are thinking is, and the old century-old observational entomology literature indicates is there's a real correlation between low-lying areas that would normally collect moisture, and occurrence of these animals in dry years. So there's some thought that they could be semi-aquatic, feeding on the roots of semi-aquatic plants. And when those dry down and there's nothing to eat, they're going to spread and they're going to feed on whatever's handy. And their host range is monstrous. It seems there's very little that they won't eat. So we've seen them damage flax, corn, cereals, canola, pulses, and including alfalfa in this case. So the case from Kindersley. There's nothing registered for their control. So you need to be aware that if you put anything down for these animals, everything you use is going to be strictly off label, and you don't have any recourse if you have no effect. So if you do put something down, be darn sure that you're not going to run into MRL issues, that it's actually registered in that crop. But please consider that anything you put down for it is strictly speaking going to be off label. So the dimethoate that was put down for them didn't really impact them, didn't reduce their numbers. The thinking is in part because the numbers are so prevalent under the soil surface. If you reach into one of these hot spots where you see hundreds, or tens, and they're very active. There's no mistaking them for anything else. They're very, very active. Running across the surface, you plunge your hand in there, pull out a baseball size clump of soil, and you're going to get thousands of them. And they're going to, for some, this might be a bit of a horror movie, but they're going to start running up running up your arm towards you. Eek, a mouse, and away you go. But yeah, it can be alarming if you're so inclined. However, fascinating experience if you're not frightened by that sort of thing. Really interesting animals. however, really problematic. The really curious thing about the Kindersley site is after the dimethoate was applied, which didn't really seem to impact the red bug very much, crickets moved in, field crickets, and seemed to consume all the red bug. So crickets, of course, are real omnivores. If it ain't nailed down, they'll at least give it a go. And in this case, they seem to like to eat red bug. We saw or had an account of pretty significant damage near Earl Grey in alfalfa, and one account near of canola near Plenty of a damaging population mid-June. And that damage had increased from 20 acres to 40 acres and when I say damage, I mean moonscape. I mean there was, they clear it off. Uh, so 20 acres to 40 acres in 48 hours after application of a group 3 insecticide. So the insecticide did not have an impact on these animals at all. And the anecdotal reports, so growers will try things and agronomists will try things. If they're losing a crop to this insect and it's really apparent that they are, they'll try things. And the reports are so mixed that we get back, so we don't really have any clear indication of effective specific modes of action, timing, crop interactions, anything like that. It really does seem to be hit or miss whether you're going to get an effective insecticide. Pardon me. Next slide, please. Happily, a bit of a cool year as far as flea beetles went. We still did have a couple of hot spots in the north in the Spiritwood area with striolata, which tends to like things a little cooler and wetter and tends to be more restricted to the north. With the climate shifting a little bit to drier conditions once again, they seem to be pushing back a little bit further to the north, and crucifer flea beetle seems to be taking over in the south again. So Crucifer flea beetle remains the dominant one in the south. We had a couple of warm spots, but for the most part, not a whole lot of secondary application of foliar insecticides for flea beetles in the province of Saskatchewan this past year. Uh, Next slide, please. And this is from the crop report. This is June 10 to June 16. You can see there's not a whole lot of action there as far as severe or heavy flea beetle populations. We continue to monitor for diamondback moth. Happily, I'll cut to the chase on this one. Numbers remained low for 2025, but we will continue to monitor for this one. When numbers are hot, they are pretty extraordinarily hot. They can be a really, really devastating pest. And so we will continue to monitor for this one. Adults are migratory. And you can see that kale at the bottom there that's been devastated by larval feeding. That's from Georgia, from South Georgia. So South Georgia, Florida, North Mexico, Texas plant what are called winter crops for those who don't know. So they have 12-month production. Continuous production in those regions, and they go from summer crops to winter crops. So the less heat tolerant ones like brassica veg, they'll grow in the winter. And of course, diamondback moth loves brassica veg. It also loves canola, loves mustards. It loves pretty much all the Brassicaceae except rocket for some reason. Yeah, it has to do with the chemistry of rocket without getting into too much detail. But yeah, for the most part, Brassicaceae is on the menu. So when those winter crops are, oh, sorry, if you could say that for a moment, or the previous slide. So when these crops are harvested, or the host plant quality decreases significantly, like what you might be seeing here. The adults that are produced from that larval development, they're going to pupate on the plant. Those adults are going to emerge and they're going to take flight. And if the conditions are such where it's not presenting a lot of opportunities for egg laying, they're going to take flight en masse, and they're going to get into the wind column at about 300 to 500 meters, and it's a little bit warmer there on average, typically 300 to 500 meters, although that can extend to great heights, as high as 4 kilometers. So really high in the atmosphere. And they're going to stay there and get pushed along by these high altitude winds, and they can cover 1,000 kilometers a day. So they're just maintaining their position in the wind column. This isn't really active flight, this 1,000 kilometers a day. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's, so what this means is they can get from Florida to Saskatchewan. And if they encounter the conditions, and it's thought to be a cooling of the air in that warm band. Then they'll fall out of that air column en masse. So they'll just rain down on the prairies by the bajillions and establish there. And this usually coincides with the emergence of canola and Nebraska veg here and mustards as well. Next slide, please. So we're monitoring for their arrival. We're looking for the time of arrival, and we're looking for how numerous that arrival is, and then we can couple that with, heat accumulation, get an idea of what to expect as far as their movement through generations and what we can expect for regional pressure. So as far as field to field pressure, if you're catching a lot in a delta trap on a field, that isn't necessarily going to mean that you're going to have a lot of pressure in that field. The adults are excellent flyers and they can cover great distances. So what we're doing with these traps, you can see the Delta trap there pictured. Looks a lot like the Jackson trap from the previous Hessian fly example. So this has got a pheromone lure, synthetic sex pheromone lure attached to the top inside, and then a glue board on the bottom. And so we're attracting males. So the males are extremely sensitive to the pheromone of females, the sex pheromone of females. That's the come hither signal for the males. So of course, when you're 3 to 4 millimeters long, and it's a great big world out there, and you've just rained down from Mexico, it's really hard for a boy to meet girl, through normal dating channels. So the female is going to call to the male. It's her come hither signal. Hey, fellas. And he is going to respond to that. Those molecules of sex pheromone are going to bump into his antennae, carried by the wind, and he's going to go, much like a, cartoon. His eyes are going to bulge out, and his heart is going to do this, and he's going to face into the wind, and then he's going to take flight, and he's going to cast, and as he casts, he's going to encounter more or less of those sex pheromone molecules, and as he encounters more, the casting gets more narrow, and then boy meets girl, beautiful music plays. They contribute to the next generation. It's all very lovely. However, we use a synthetic sex pheromone and a glue board to take what he thinks is going to be an extraordinary day and turn that into a very, very bad day. So he gets stuck to a glue board and count it instead of contributing to the next generation. So we have a series of 61 traps that were set in 2025 and began to capture, as is normal, early May, and numbers increased until about late June. Numbers were low. So happily, numbers were quite low this year, and only one confirmed account of spraying in the Kindersley region. And yeah, again, populations were relatively low, or very low, as a matter of fact. Next slide, please. And boy, oh boy, was this a story this year and could be again for the coming year. This is cabbage seed pod weevil. And pictured here is an adult and arguably the cutest pest in the whole wide world, although Megan argues it's the pea leaf weevil. Um, these are not objective measures, so there is no cute scale that you measure against. Larvae, however, probably less cute. And this is a third instar larva that's been found in a canola pod consuming the seeds. So both adults and larvae can damage, although the larvae really are the business end of the damage. Adults can contribute to bud blast, in particular if conditions are very warm, and so therefore can directly contribute to yield. But for the most part, the yield issue is going to be associated with larval damage. We monitored 209 sites this past year, or in 2025, and the overall catch was about 3 times what we saw the previous year. And the previous year was a pretty good year for cabbage seed pod weevil. So 2025 was relatively monstrous as far as this animal goes. Many reports of spraying. So we had reports from the southeast extending all the way up to the Kindersley area of pretty significant cabbage seed pod weevils populations warranting spray. The threshold for these is 2.5 to 4 per sweep at 10 to 20% flower. That isn't to say that if you're at 30% flower, oh, the jig is up. No, if you're at 30% flower and you're encountering those economic levels, then definitely still put a spray down. They're ovipositing when those pods are about a half an inch long. And what she's doing is she's going to find those pods. She's going to find the plants initially, and she uses a sequence of visual, olfactory, and then tactile chemical evaluation to determine if that's a good host plant. If she determines that's a good host plant, and it's kind of laborious for sequence of events for her to do that. She's going to chew a little hole into that developing pod, turn around, lay a single egg in there, and then deposit what's called an oviposition deterring pheromone. And what this means is that only one egg is laid per pod. And these animals are pretty fecund. The reason that she does that is because they're very bad. They're very bad at sharing. And so that oviposition deterring pheromone is a warning to other females not to lay an egg there, or that larva, the second one is probably going to get cannibalized. So maybe go to the next slide, please. And next one, and maybe the next one. Yeah, okay, sorry. Let's go back to the previous one, and I could talk about next one, next previous one, and previous one, and that. Great, thank you. So what this means, so these animals are capable of laying 300 plus eggs. So under ideal conditions. So that's the potential of one female impacting 300 pods. And if each larva can consume 3 to 5 seeds, and then we can go to the next slide, please. And you can see the direct damage. So that's an emergence hole there. And you can see that those holes can actually provide an entrance for fungal pathogens as well. So direct consumption of the seed, you got potential introduction of fungal pathogens, and then that can contribute to shatter as well. So it's a bit of a trifecta of crappy. Um, so next slide, please. In addition to this, one thing that was documented pretty widely this past year was what I think is secondary occupation of these pods. So there is no weevil larva in there anymore, but there are a lot of canola flower midge. And are these contributing to damage? I think this pod is probably not going to yield very much already. I think this is just a secondary infestation. I don't know that that weevil larva would be terribly tolerant of the midge larvae getting in there. Uh, so I suspect that's a secondary infestation. They do have a way of squeezing into very, very tight spots. Next slide, please. So looking at the populations, I did mention before, we saw a pretty significant increase, and so we take a look at 2024, which is a pretty warm year, especially in the Southwest, and it just exploded throughout the province. So what the heck is going on here exactly? So this has been obviously some pretty good fodder for lively discussion amongst the entomologists in Western Canada, and so there's you know some two ideas that are not mutually exclusive that have been forwarded. One is, potential for a mass flight in the spring. So not well documented, or it's never been documented to have a mass flight of this extent in this animal in the spring. There's also the potential that they could have been carried by tornadoes, thunderstorms that move through the Southwest and pretty well timed with the emergence of adults, and for them to be picked up in those storms and redistributed. And a third idea actually occurred to me. I'm going to say very recently, laying in bed last night, and this is what happens when you work with bugs. Was the potential for late season flight. So that is late season flight in 2024 of the adults that emerged from those pods, and then a subsequent flight of those ones, and wide distribution and overwintering in these regions. It's pure speculation at this point. And really what got me thinking of it was having a beer on a patio in uh, in uh, in late July, and having in an urban area and having cabbage seed pod weevil raining down on us while we were having a beer late season. And it's like, the heck is going on here? So yeah, they are taking flight and in numbers at that time of the year. Again, pure speculation. We don't know, capital no, exactly what's going on, but in those regions, um, be mindful of cabbage seed pod weevil and monitor. to the thresholds, and do not discount the amount of damage that these animals can cause. So we've got some accounts of 100% infestation of canola crops in unsprayed fields and heavy damage in sprayed fields. So even if you do spray according to the threshold, they're still attracted to those yellow flowers and highly attracted. They can't resist. And if they're in the region around there, they'll still fly in to take advantage of those. So you could get more animals washing in after that spray is applied and the residues have evaporated. So keep an eye on them even after on those crops, even after sprays have been put down. There's no indication at this point that we've seen any resistance to any of the modes of action that are registered for cabbage seed pod weevil, but group threes are a really efficacious and inexpensive solution for their control. We have seen group three resistance in cabbage seed pod weevil in European populations, but not in North America. And I'll leave off on cabbage seed pod weevil for there. I hope everybody is suitably nervous. I certainly am about cabbage seed pod weevil for the upcoming season. Bertha, we're probably looking at continuation of a Bertha outbreak as well. We saw significant increases in Bertha armyworm populations, particularly in southern and northern region, or central and northern regions. We saw a warm spring and early summer conditions and emergence of these animals about 2 weeks early. So we saw some really rapid degree day accumulation, and it seemed like good survivorship of overwintering pupae and a lot of adults emerging. So we had one site this is one trap that caught more than 2,000 adults. In Saskatchewan, several 11 caught more than 1,000. So these are big numbers, obviously. So there were a lot of these animals moving around. This is a great picture from John Gavlosky, Manitoba entomologist, looking at different color morphs. So the one thing that you see in common with the copper tinged brown one to the black one to the green ones is that yellow stripe. That's very characteristic of this species and relatively large size. So you get a 6-inch star Bertha armyworm, and this animal can be 2 inches long. So they can be very large and can cause a lot of damage, particularly to pods in an awful hurry. So keep an eye out for this one. Also keep an eye out for clover cutworm. Clover cutworm has a pink stripe. The damage is indistinguishable between the two. They're both generalist feeders, chewers and munchers, and can co-occur. So if you're seeing clover cutworm and Bertha armyworm, half an inch or larger, at or above threshold, then consider control. Just lump them all in together. And finally, and next, if you want to take a look at these are the maps from last year. So that's from 2024, and you can see pretty significant upregulation of populations. Outbreaks, as a rule, don't usually last a year, so we're keeping an eye. We're being mindful that we could be seeing another hot Bertha armyworm. Megan Van Koski described 2025 as a building year. Who might argue? We did see some incidents of disease in these animals, and they are subject and regulated by baculovirus. And people have probably seen, the hanging bags of yuck in canola crops, and these are caterpillars. Could be Bertha, could be clover cutworm that have been impacted by this baculovirus. And what's happened is, much like the summiting disease, uh, that's a fungus in grasshoppers, this pathogen has obliged its host to climb to the top of a plant, grab on for dear life, and then it puddles it. So the virologists call the term puddling, and much like it sounds, it liquefies the inside of the animal. So even the slightest touch, even a strong wind, will cause the release of huge numbers of virus particles, and these will adhere to other potential hosts and spread the disease. So we did see a pretty widespread incidence of disease, but we saw some pretty monstrous numbers of Bertha as well. So be mindful of Bertha for the upcoming year. Next slide, please. Yeah, and just from the crop report again, just at a couple of different weeks timing, looking at some severe infestations and some moderate numbers in some other areas. Next slide, please. So of course, with modern commodity prices, modern control product prices, the old experimentally derived economic thresholds for these they still apply, but the window is relatively narrow. So I did what's called an interpolation of these relationships. These are non-linear relationships. They do tend to plateau, and so just followed the lines where they went and just inserted the numbers as the lines continued. So this gives you an idea, for $20 canola and let's say $30 an acre application costs. So some of the chemistries have become less expensive, of course, with some of the generics jumping on board. But I think one of the things that maybe not considered with spray costs is it's not just the cost of the control or the cost of the product. You got to look at the product costs, your fuel costs, depreciation costs, labor. There are a lot of things that need to be factored into this, and that all factors into your thresholds and to your profit margin. Next slide, please. Pulse pests. Um, This is pea leaf weevil and really characterized. You can see an adult here pictured in the middle. These engage in a mass flight in the spring, particularly in European populations, though it has been documented in North American populations as well. Their damage is really characteristic by this notch feeding. They have a number of food hosts in the Fabaceae, so they will happily munch on a number of different food hosts, but they can only complete development in the rhizobium nodules of field peas or faba. So these are considered to be true hosts. The true hosts will support larval development. The food hosts adults can munch on to contribute to egg development. So these lay, hundreds of eggs, but they lay them individually, and she's just wandering the wilderness, depositing an individual egg. Okay, you're on your own. That hatches up, tunnels into the soil, finds a rhizobium nodule, and begins to feed. And then she just continues to wander the wilderness, dropping individual eggs. Terrible mother. Although she finds great places for her progeny to grow up. So we extended the survey further north and further east in response to some highly elevated numbers that we saw a couple of years ago, and just taking a look at that, and we saw elevated numbers again this past year. So an important consideration for this animal and for cabbage seed pod weevil is neither of them are terribly cold hardy. So they really do need a pretty good snow cover, particularly in shelter belts and grassy berms and areas that collect snow. That's where these animals are going to be overwintering for protection from those hard cold temperatures. I always mix these two numbers up. You're getting about the -7 to -10 range for both of these animals. So if they're exposed to -7 to -10, you're going to get spontaneous death, widespread death in these populations. So they're not terribly cold hardy. Both of these species evolved in Europe, and their native range isn't nearly as cold as you get on the prairies. However, if they're protected by snow cover, the snow cover under, or the temperature under 20 centimeters of snow can be about 0 degrees Celsius. So that can be very well protected. So take a look at the survey results from this, and color this with what's happening in your region with snow cover. And this can give an idea as to whether or not you need to be looking at a seed dressing or a seed treatment for this. Cruiser has been demonstrated, or the thiamethoxam seed dressings. I realize there are other thiamethoxam seed dressings, are the most efficacious way to control bee leaf beetle damage. Foliar application is really hit or miss. And so some work done by Hector Carcamo and Megan Petkoski at AFC Lethbridge some time ago now, but still pertinent. Um, the line between A and B of yield recovery or yield benefit associated with foliar applications to control adults for this animal, not clear, not very clear at all. So next slide, please. P-aphid, and sincere thanks to Adama for contributing to this work, for providing us with materials to conduct this work. We have seen some issues with Lantus hyalithrin efficacy in P-aphid populations in Saskatchewan, and this came to light at the in pretty enthusiastically at the 2024 Crop Diagnostics School, where a number of agronomists and growers brought this forward to myself and to the other presenters there. So because of this, we hatched a plan. So myself, uh, um, Mike Brown, who is now formerly of SPG, um, Tyler Wist of Ag Canada, and Sean Prager of University of Saskatchewan for a field test kit. And so in our first year, we developed a full rate, half rate, quarter rate, and water control using silencer. And in 2025, we looked at a full rate, 10th, 100th, and 1,000th rate and water control to be able to do a proper analysis on this. So the first one was to get a quick look. The second was to get a more detailed look at what the LC50 values were like. This is Faith Hills, my intrepid summer student, still smiling after putting together a whole bunch of field test kits. Yeah, she's a very patient person. So looking at CPL colony, that is the crop protection lab colony. We got naive aphids from Sean Prager's naive colony at the University of Saskatchewan. Established our own colony in Regina and put them to the test. So we tested two colonies with these field test kits, and we determined the LC50 was comparable. We tested one of these a week later, or one of these field test kits arrays a week later to determine if these could be reused, and yes, they can be reused. So we got comparable results for these. The LC50s are well in the same range. If we take a look at the next slide, looking at some of the field results, these are from a couple of different field settings, and in these cases, we were not seeing evidence of tolerance to the lambda-cyhalothrin. What was really troubling is, despite not seeing evidence in the test kit, there one of these populations and ended up being problematic. If we could take a look at the next slide, though, pretty clear evidence of reduced susceptibility in pea aphid to this group 3 insecticide. And in this case, of course, we got the control, and one of them, the spear samples, these were an order of magnitude less sensitive, and in the case of the Coven samples, these were 2 orders of magnitude less sensitive. So pretty strong evidence that we've got tolerant populations, and the establishment of group 3 resistant pea aphid here. So yeah, potentially problematic. What's more problematic is that there's also uh, lots of evidence that these animals overwinter here. There's been a bit of a mantra that they fly in, they fly in, they fly in, and although they do, they also overwinter in very large numbers in perennial pulses like clover and alfalfa. And so there's going to be continued work on these. We're going to be producing field test kits once again for the upcoming season. So if you want these, please reach out, and we can get some more results for that. Also look forward to a formal report on this. Apologize, I've been, as a number of things have come up, not to mention a bit of a bug here. So please look forward to a formal report on this. And Sean Prager and Tyler Wist will continue this work at the University of Saskatchewan and Ag Canada to do more detailed work. So forage pests, lygus can be a problem. It has a huge host range and a number of different crops. They were problematic in clovers, primarily in the Northeast, and sweet clover trials. I still haven't got a confirmed identity of the sweet clover problematic weevil, but being sweet clover, very likely it's sweet clover weevil, which of course can be very numerous in that plant species. Next slide, please. Spotted wing Drosophila continues to be a problem in Saskatchewan. This is a survey that's led by Forrest Sharp, our provincial fruit specialist, and he's documenting this pest throughout Saskatchewan in a number of different fruit production regions. So it's not just a problem for commercial fruit producers; it's also a problem for hobbyists. This feeding inside the fruit, sorry, if you could go back, renders the fruit unmarketable, and they are again very widely distributed. There are a lot of products registered for their control, but if the host ends in berry, and this also includes tomato, then they can be subject to oviposition and damage from this one. And the next one, please, this will be the last animal I talk about. This is black vine weevil, and this is only the second report we've found for Saskatchewan. This was identified in a greenhouse nursery uh, production in the Deer Valley in Strawberry. This grower has worked very hard to eradicate this population. He doesn't want to see it established. We do not want to see it established in Saskatchewan. It is established in other parts of the country, most notably Eastern Canada. So there are products registered for its control. Adults can be damaging, but much like many of the other ones, the larvae are the most damaging stage of this. It has a very broad host range, so more than 100 host species will feed on a broad assemblage of greenhouse, nursery, and other plants. Can be problematic in turf as well. It is European. It's been in Canada for some time, but it continues hopefully to be restricted to Eastern Canada. So stay tuned on this one. It is a large weevil. So more than a centimeter, 1.2 to 1.1 to 1.2 centimeters long, adult females. And one thing that's really characteristic about them is their elytra, or that wing covering, their forewings, or that hardened wing covering is fused. So they couldn't fly if they wanted to. So the adults get around by walking. They're also pretty notorious stowaways, but most of the movement of these is through contaminated root material with the adults, and it's very likely that the Saskatchewan occurrence was associated with movement of material from Eastern Canada. Oh, pardon my voice. Next slide, please, and this is the last one. So we did note some exceedances this past year that are quite troubling. So these are exceedances that were documented for 2024. There is a delay in processing. So these are samples that are taken and samples that are processed by the Pest Management Regulatory Agency of Health Canada. So this one is chlorantraniliprole. This is the active ingredient that you would find uh, uh, in a number of different products, including some foliar applications like Coragen and Shenzi and some others. But I mean, these rates are just monstrous, and the idea that they were sustained for weeks, weeks, and weeks does not indicate a single application. Indicates a very large spill that should have been reported. So these numbers were occurring in the Moose Jaw River at numbers high enough to seriously impact fish. The next one is chlorpyrifos, and of course that's the active ingredient that was in Lorsban and a number of different products. This is now off the books. Nobody had any business spraying this in 2024, but someone did, and it was detected in the water at an exceedance level hot enough to kill the heck out of aquatic invertebrates. So, yeah, so MRLs can be a pretty significant issue. Um, Detections like this, particularly for chlorantraniliprole, can influence regulatory decisions by the Pest Management Regulatory Agency. So if large numbers of these incidents are detected, this can influence whether or not we have access to these products. So please, please, please be careful with the use of these products. And with that, I'll take any questions. Or you want me to wait till after you're done? Sorry.
Yes, I think we'll hold questions till the end. I'm just going to run through Adama products that we have available for these insect pests that James highlighted. So I do thank you for the update. It was very detailed, and we appreciate that detail from you. First up is our trusted market leader silencer. It's our Group 3 pyrethroid contact insecticide. It's a sodium channel modulator preventing the sodium channel from closing, muscle cease to function, followed by paralysis and death. Basically, what your spray pattern hits is what you're going to control. We do lose some efficacy at temperatures above 25 degrees as the biology of insects switches away from using the sodium channel. And when that target becomes inactive, we lose efficacy. So your efficacy does drop off. It comes in a case with 4 3.78-liter jugs, and the standard rate is 110 acres a jug or 34 mils an acre. It has a wide range of crops and pests. And as you can see from the chart, silencer does work on these wide range of pests. Again, your go-to product for flea beetles, cutworms, moths, and grasshoppers in canola, cereals, and pulses, with that standard rate being 34 mils an acre. So a product that was new to us this past year was Cosair, which is our alternative to Coragen, so chlorantraniliprole. So it comes in two 6-liter jugs in a case. It's a group 28 diamide. They are ingestion insecticides that act on the insect's muscle function or the ryanodine receptor, and they work at higher temperatures. So after feeding on treated plants, insects quickly stop feeding and moving, leading to paralysis and death. They provide a long-lasting residual effect because the product is taken up by the plant and protects it from new infestation. But again, we must remember it only protects the current growth. It does not move to any new growth. Chlorantraniliprole is selected for ryanodine receptors, as I said earlier, but it does not affect any other metabolic processes and does not interfere with target sites of other IRAC insecticide groups. I'll cover off some crops and pests that it does cover. Like I said before, again, along with Silencer, it works in a wide array of pests it controls. It provides that extended control that we rely on for grasshoppers and different worm species in canola, cereals, and pulses. The rate range does depend on the pest you're going after and the extended control that you do desire. And the rate ranges are from 50 to 151 mils an acre. Which leads me to our new dual mode option of Silencer Duo, which is a co-pack of both actives with 2 jugs of each in the case. So highlighting what Silencer Duo does provide us, it's the unique co-pack featuring market-leading actives for grasshoppers, flea beetles, and Lepidoptera species, which are moth and worms, of Lambda and CTPR. These actives' mode of action provides us with knockdown and residual protection. They cover a broad spectrum of targets and crops in cereals, pulses, canola, corn, and soybeans. And cereals are very unique to this insecticide, as that was never on the label for this combination before. It is a proactive resistant management tool. With the combination of 2 actives, we are providing a proactive resistant management tool. And we normally don't think about this with insecticides, but we are running into species that have increased tolerance to different actives. It is a dual mode of action, and we have a wide range of flexible rates for pests and crops. And you will see the pest rates coming up in another slide. So highlighting these differences on the actives. So Silencer Duo A is our CTPR, the chlorantraniliprole. Again, an ingestion insecticide that acts on muscle function. Insects stop feeding quickly, leading to paralysis and death, with long-lasting residual protection that's absorbed by the plant, protects current growth that is there. Strong on chewing pests such as caterpillars, beetles, other leaf-feeding insects. Silencer Duo B is your lambda Psi portion, the pyrethroid, which is a contact insecticide, works on insect nervous system. Fast-acting knockdown provides paralysis and death. There is some tarsal contact effect, which basically means the insect absorbs the active if they're walking on the treated surface. We have short to no residual, only controls insects that are directly exposed at application. This is where the synergistic action comes in. They both work at different temperatures. So Silencer would work at a lower temperature where the chlorantraniliprole works at higher temperatures, with the Lambda working at lower temperatures. So some synergistic action with that fast-acting knockdown and long-lasting protection. Current rate range registered with PMRA is 106 acres a case to 240 acres a case. When we look at that 240 acre rate per case, we're dealing with 51 mils an acre of CTPR and 34 mils of Lambda. The key pests you will see on the label for canola are flea beetle, diamondback moth, Bertha armyworm, lygus bug, and cabbage seed pod weevil. Again, as I discussed earlier, cereals is unique to this label, so a great fit for grasshoppers and any worm species that you're dealing with. Pulses, we're covering most insect pests such as grasshoppers, aphids, and cutworms. We do have a lower rate range submitted to PMRA and expecting approval here shortly. So I wanted to highlight some field trials that we've done these past few years. So this was tests we've done in 2025, 4 different tests. As you can see from the chart, we are providing excellent control with the dual actives. Silencer Duo has 11% more CTPR than Volume Express, while Volume has 15% more lambda than Silencer Duo. At these rates, we can see that we are providing longer extended control of grasshoppers, which you can see from the far chart. The control level is almost 10% better at 10 to 12 days after application. When we look at a summary of our trials in grasshoppers over 14 trials, we can see that we are proving the overall control by getting that initial knockdown followed by that residual protection. This chart helps to show the synergistic effect of both actives, giving you knockdown and extended control. Now, going on to canola, we conducted replicated trials the past 2 years with Silencer Duo and canola. This trial picture highlights the reduction of defoliation. We feel this product does have a great fit still for that flea beetle acre or the canola acre where we're dealing with flea beetles. As growers are planting canola earlier, the first week of May into cold, potentially dry soil conditions. The canola germinates slowly and doesn't grow extremely fast in these conditions, leaving it more at risk to flea beetle pressure at this time of year. As we can see from this plot, Silencer Duo is showing more advanced leaf size and more overall plants. If we go on to 16 days after application, we can see evidence of a more healthier plant stand. Feeding damage was observed at 16 days after application, and we see a clear reduction in damage. What's really differentiates Silencer Duo is how the two actives work together. With the pyrethroid, we get the quick knockdown, kills flea beetles directly that are hit during spraying, but that's it. Beetles on the underside of the leaves are not affected. When the CTPR is added, it introduces a different mode of action that works mainly through ingestion and has translaminar movement, meaning it's moving through that leaf tissue that's there. So even beetles not directly hit by the spray will ingest the active ingredient when feeding and stop feeding. It's important to note again that it's not fully systemic, so it won't move to new leaves. So when we're talking about reduction of defoliation, we can see that in this location, it led to an almost 60% feeding damage reduction compared to the check, and even better reduction than what we saw with the standard practice currently. So if we highlight some trials that we did this past season, we are seeing that overall reduction in flea beetle damage at 12 days after application. And as you can see, we are getting an 11% reduction in defoliation with Silencer Duo compared to our standard practice of Silencer at that 34 mil an acre rate. We were interested to see that we are also noting earlier pod set and earlier flowering with these overall healthier plant stands. And this was in conjunction with that reduced feeding that's happening earlier, that's leading to this early pod set and early onset of flowering. We can also see that when we evaluate these trials and the number of days to flowering. So we could see that the Silencer Duo was helping the canola plots to flower sooner than the untreated or any other treatments that we had. When we look at the summary of 9 trials over this past season, we can see that overall improved control over that standard practice. So again, a technical recap on Silencer Duo. It's that knockdown and residual protection with that ingestion insecticide that stops feeding quickly, long-lasting residual combined with that contact insecticide, giving us that tarsal contact, giving us a synergistic action, fast-acting knockdown pyrethroid with that long-lasting protection of the CTPR. Again, the temperature limitations are gone with this combination product, where the diamides work better in hot temperatures and lambda works better in cooler temperatures. So recapping our insecticide lineup, we have Cormoran for that alfalfa acre that has novaluron and acetamiprid. We have Corsair, which is our CTPR, our tried and true trusted pyrethroid silencer, and now we have the combination of Silencer Duo that combines not only Corsair but lambda-Cy portion in it as well. So that is all I had for our insecticide chat today. I just wanted to talk about how, we have a quite a robust pipeline of our insecticides, but we are also looking to find innovation in all spaces of crop protection, and Silencer Duo is a proof point to that innovation. We are currently screening other actives in our pipeline to continue that innovation so that producers always have options to utilize on their farms. So if anybody has any questions, they can ask them now. I just wanted to highlight that we have another webinar coming up on March 16th, which is Monday, and talking about the resistance shift that's happening. So I'll put the CCA scan app up and I can take any questions that we have. So if we have anything, if you could let us know.
Yeah, Patty, there's a couple questions in the chat, so if you're okay with it, I'll read them out.
Yeah, for sure.
And the first one was, have we ever seen diamondback moth migrating from California?
Excellent question. To my knowledge, no. Which is, yeah, no, really interesting. Worldwide, we got three major populations. Um, I'm not going to say no, because we have different flyways in North America. So, okay, let me just preface this. Worldwide, we got North American populations, European, African populations, and then Asian populations. There can be some mixing of those, but the North American populations, that's determined by flyways, much like you see with birds. So I hate to respond with an I don't know, but I don't know, or I don't
And
recall. Yeah.
and that's fair, and not to
Oh,
editorialize or try to usurp the beautiful question, but when we saw the picture of them eating kale, when I
yeah.
think of kale, I think of California, so probably a very logical question.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they do have some brassica veg production there as well. They uh, um, movement from the Pacific Northwest. So I mean, Oregon region, Southern Oregon, or Oregon to Western Canada has been documented. I'm certain the Rocky Mountains are presenting a bit of a barrier in that case, though. I'd have to look into it. I apologize. I haven't got a hard answer for you.
Nope, that's fantastic. The second question that's in there was that one of the attendees here was at another meeting, and at that meeting it was stated that the cabbage seed pod weevils need lots of snow to overwinter. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, would you have a definition of what is considered a lot of snow?
Oh boy, yeah. I think from a weevil's perspective, 20 centimeters is a lot, and I think it has to do with the timing of everything. If you get those, well, see, let me put a caveat on that too. So let's say timing. So you get a real hard cold snap for the deposition of, accumulation of a decent snowpack. That's certainly going to expose them to cold temperatures. But they do tend to overwinter in shelter belts and grassy berms. And I mean by the thousands per square meter. I mean they're really like each other's company. And those areas tend to really catch and keep the snow pretty early. So is there a minimum snow? Yeah, I don't, again, I haven't got a hard answer for you, but I think if you got snow in the shelter belts, then you could probably consider them to be pretty snug.
Mother Nature finds a way. No, thank you. I think those were the only two questions that came into the Q&A chat.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, watch out for weevils this year for sure, and Bertha.
Unfortunately. Well, thanks again, James, for popping on to our webinar. We appreciate your time and the detail you put into your presentation. And if there are no other questions, I will wrap up the webinar. Again, you can reach out to James. If anybody has any comments or questions, I can fire off his email to people if they're wondering.
Yeah, I'm very easy to find.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.